Welcome in to the Golf Intervention. It's kind of late on a Thursday night. Rob Fales is a bachelor. Where's the wife and child? Rob, where are they tonight? Are they out of town?
They're down in Hilton Head, South Carolina right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds nice.
Soaking up the sun. Yeah.
You got a few days at the beach too, I assume.
Mm-hmm. I did. Yep. Got nice and sunburned. It was awesome.
Yeah. If those of you that don't know Rob Fales and what he looks like, although this will be on YouTube, I think, so you'll see him. He's got that fair skin. He's a fair skin guy. Mm-hmm. True story. I've never had a sunburn really, but I'm dark complected, so.
Come on.
It's true. True. I've had a little nip of a sunburn, but nothing serious. So anyway, here we are, Golf Intervention, back on the air. Robbie was traveling, as we just talked about, so we missed kind of recording. And the week before, we did a great outline for tonight's episode. We were ready to record, and then I just didn't feel well, so we kind of missed it. So we're a couple weeks out, and I apologize for that. But, this time of year is tough, man, because we're working a lot of hours. A lot going on in May when you got kids graduating high school and things and all the stuff that wraps up at the end of the school year I've got 4 kids. There's a lot going on. So I'm glad we put out any episodes. I feel really accomplished there. And tonight's episode, I'm pretty stoked about. I think it's very much true roots, golf intervention style. What is it going to take for you as a player to get to the next level of your game? And if you don't know about the golf intervention, let me just fill you in if this is your first time listening. We look at the data. We look at the learning. We look at the science. We look at the practice strategies. We talk about the psychology of this thing. And we basically take real data, and we've broken it down. We get a lot of it from something called Game Forge, which you all should sign up for and use. And what we do is we basically break players down into 3 kind of /4 levels, because we do say that there's a tour level. It's so minute. Tour level is so minute. Mm-hmm. And frankly, those people are not human, but they're aspirational, right? They do things at a level that's just, you can't even believe. So we basically break you down from basically beginner golfer to bogey golfer-ish, maybe a little better than bogey golfer is a level 1 player. Level 2 player is that sort of between level 1 and scratch, which a scratch golfer we say probably shoots, not 72 by the way on average, it's like 76 or 77 scoring average is level 3, down to then this aspirational tour level. And what we're going to cover tonight on the Golf Intervention is, if I'm level 1 player, what are the 3 things I could work on right now in season, okay, because we're in the season, to get me maybe to level 2. And if I'm level 2, same thing for level 3, and level 3 to tour player. Or what does a tour player do better than a scratch golfer? Which the answer is everything. Everything. and astronomically better. Just curiosity, do you think that a level 2 golfer is, if I'm an 85, this is just a philosophical question, is an 85 shooter closer to a scratch golfer than a scratch golfer is to a tour player?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? I don't think people realize that. I would totally agree with you. And we don't need to discuss all the data as to why that is. However, it's important. They're good. They're really, really good. So let's dive in. What do you think? You have anything to add before we get going? Golf intervention-wise? Anything good?
No, I'm fired up.
I'm fired up too. Now, let me tell you why I'm fired up. I'm going to go back here for a second. I'm going to step backwards. I've got some stories to tell you. So I got an email today from an avid listener, really nice guy. Came to see me for a lesson. He's a guest of a member, wanted to come see me. We did 1 lesson. He sent me this text. I don't know, did I send you the text that he sent me?
Yes, yeah.
What a phenomenal thing. I think we've done 1 lesson. And the text basically said, I'm going to paraphrase because I can't find it right now. I'm playing the best golf I've played in 20 years. Scoring average way down. I shot 3 rounds in a row or 4 rounds in a row in the low to mid 70s, which is, he's a 12 handicap coming for a lesson. And I have to tell you, because he told me coming into the lesson, we've communicated, some of it, and a lot of it, was what we worked on in the lesson for an hour. But a lot of it was also golf intervention stuff, where he's thinking about stuff like, what is a disruptor? How do I avoid them? What do I need to practice? Like, what is my skill? Like, he's going through what we're about to talk about tonight, and he's thinking about it. I get emails almost every day, or people coming up to me saying, what you and Rob are doing is really great. I'm really enjoying it. I'm learning so much. I've played golf my whole life. I'm seeing it in a different way. We decided to do this because we were tired of people kind of trying to find answers in a really good way, positive energy, trying to sort it out, and then go in the wrong direction, right? Finding a swing tip that doesn't work, or, I'm going to try this thing. You know what I think it is mostly here, Rob? And I'm fired up on a Thursday evening, apparently, is it's a misinterpretation of what they're hearing. A lot of times, like, I can't watch a video and go, oh, swing plane, I can do that, like, and not, how do you have feedback on that, right? And so then everything tends to be interpreted a little bit off, and then it throws their game into a tizzy. That's what I see.
For me, it's just nothing's in context, typically. You get a tip that, a golf instructor may have just had 3 lessons in a row of working with people hooking the golf ball, right? And what they've given all 3 of these players are something to get the face more open to the path, maybe. And then they see some results, they see things going in the right direction, and then they get excited, like, oh, this must be really important. And so they make a video like, do this in your backswing, or do this coming down. And sometimes they'll even say, and I hope they do, that, okay, if you're hooking the ball, think about this. But a lot of avid golfers, right, that contextual piece, they just skip right over it, right? They don't really think about, oh, he just said that this is if you're hooking the ball. I don't hook the ball. Maybe I shouldn't worry about listening to this piece of information. They just consume the content, and they think that it's applicable to them, and it might, and sometimes it could help get them on the right track, but 90% of the time, it doesn't. And so then they're just working on something that's not relevant to them, or might even get them going further down the rabbit hole that they're already going down. And so really, when I remember we had this conversation right before we started the podcast, not tonight, but before we started this thing, and my big thing was, I think we need to put everything into context and get golfers to understand, who am I? Why am I consuming this piece of information? And then how am I actually going to apply it and interpret it and take it out onto the golf course? So I completely agree with you. I think that's why we're seeing a trend going in the right direction with our listeners, is because we're getting them to think about things more in context.
It's been so cool. And I've had some really fun conversations with people about it and stuff they're learning. I want to talk about the last episode too, because if you really think about what we're talking about right now, is we're basically saying, here's the process. Okay, we give them performance ideas. Like, we're going to talk about some performance parameters tonight, okay?
Yep.
So we're going to start off today, level 1 golfer. You're beginning the game, you're learning the game maybe. See, to me, level 1 starts with players that don't even keep score yet, and then they just start to keep score. Out of a level 1, a couple that's a level 1 golfer, both of them, they're kind of right at retirement age, new to golf, really loving it. They each take a lesson with me each week. Really, really great. Great learners, very thoughtful. They diligently practice, and they've just played 5 times. That's all. They played 5 times, 9 holes together. They're on this journey exactly together, which is so fun. And what I told them was, have you started to keep score? And they're like, no, we haven't. I said, that's good. I don't worry if you're keeping score, okay? Here's what I want you to do. Maybe you just keep track of how many putts you take in the next round. Like, I just want them to start tracking things, right? Like, maybe you just keep track of how many, like, really good iron shots you hit in the round, or good ones versus, like, duffs. Like, just start tracking. Eventually, that's going to lead them to keeping score. But I don't want the score to be the thing that demotivates them, if that makes sense, right? I want the performance to be the thing that fuels the process for them, not the outcome. And so we talked about that, and it was like, yeah, that's such a great idea. So now they're going to keep track of certain things each round, and they're going to come back and tell me. And it's not going to be score. And then eventually it'll be score, right? Because that's why we play. So now they're that player. Now they're going into level 1, and they're going to keep score. Okay. So what we're going to do...
If we can talk about this.
Yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
I mean to interrupt, but and that's brilliant, because if we think about level 1 outcome goal is usually to have fun, right? We need to have fun on the golf course.
Exactly right.
And if we can have more fun, then we are going to have an opportunity to continue playing the game and get better and have a chance to work through these levels. And so what you gave them was a really, really clear performance goal that was tied into having fun, right? And it's just one thing that they're keeping track of, which is way easier. It's way more likely for them to do, get some buy-in. No, so I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to just reiterate how, if we talk about outcome goal, that's really in line with most level 1 golfers, what they're trying to do.
So good. And it just again, like you were saying, going through that last episode has helped me communicate some of these things better to the student, which I think is really fun for me. I really try to be a better teacher, week to week, month to month, year to year. I mean, I take that very seriously, and this is helping me. So thank you, Rob Fales, for going on this journey with me. It's been really fun.
No, thank you.
So on tonight's episode, we're going to talk about 3 steps, not really 3 steps, 3 things, really. It's not eloquent to say 3 things, but 3 items, 3 things to work on. Priorities. 1 in the full swing, 1 in the short area, and 1 in the putting. And these are going to give you really good insights into what it is you'll need to work on next. Okay, so level 1 player, in the full swing. Let's get a picture of this. They're shooting 110. They're shooting 95.
Yep.
They're shooting 100. We went through this on some of the early episodes, but you're going to get, and we love this catchphrase, disruptors. It's a Game Forge term, disruptors. And disruptors are going to be the thing we've got to attack in the full swing in level 1. So let's get a little bit of a definition from the data man himself. Tell us what a disruptor is, and maybe tell us what you think, what we think is the number 1 sort of thing they need to work on to limit their disruptors as they go from trying to be a level 1 to a level 2 player.
Yeah, so as it's defined in Game Forge, if you were to go into Game Forge, sign up for an account, start plugging your rounds in, disruptor was really started with the idea of, like, you hit it in the trees and you have to punch out, right? And then so in Game Forge you would have, all right, what was the origin of the disruptor, right? So it was basically the tee ball puts you into a place to where now it's effectively a penalty. Even though you're not taking a drop, having to go back to the tee, it's not an actual penalty by the rules of golf. Your golf ball isn't meaningfully improving in its position, and you're adding a shot. So if you can think about it in the light of an effective penalty, oftentimes it's going to be in the form of hacking it out of tall fescue, chipping out of the rough, if it's originating from the tee, or maybe even like a par 5 go for green shot. But in the context of golf intervention, we also think about disruptors as big mishits, like top, shank, right? Things that really, really, quote-unquote, disrupt your ability to get the ball from tee to green efficiently.
I like the way that you described it, which was you put a sort of a statistical weight to each shot that you play. And if you don't perform that, so meaning the tee shot's supposed to get you in position for a clear approach shot. The approach shot's supposed to get you on the green or in the short area. The short area is supposed to get you on the green, and then you're supposed to 2-putt or 1-putt, right? So when I don't accomplish any of those things, we count that as a disruptor. So if I have a tee shot that doesn't go far enough or doesn't go straight enough, disruptor. If I don't if I have an approach shot that's leaving me more approach shots, disruptor, right? If I miss the green at 30 yards, disruptor. And I've had people coming up to me and being like, Eric, I was playing with my wife. I hit this shot. And she goes, that was a disruptor. He was like, I didn't need to hear that from her at that time. I knew it was a disruptor. But again, I think that's one of the best, clearest ways to think about our skill improvement. Like, how do I limit those? Like, we can get a picture of that. If I'm shooting 110, I'm having those. I'm having lots of those. So what is it, the one thing in the full swing we can work on that we think is going to be the biggest impactful thing on limiting the disruptor?
So you've heard us say this ad nauseum, but it's worth repeating. Low point awareness in 3 dimensions, right? So the lowest part of your golf swing, it's traveling in an arc, right? So at some point, the club head gets to its lowest point, right, where it stops moving down and out and starts moving up and in, right? So where that lowest point of the swing happens in space can be, right, if you make for our YouTube listeners, right, if you make a shape to your hand like this, it could be too high, too low, too far forward, too far back, too far right, or too far left. And so if it's not hitting the middle of the face, it was, again, assuming that the club face wasn't wildly open or closed to where the face wasn't even exposed to the ball, it's going to be a low point issue. And correctly diagnosing in what dimension the low point was out of place is an incredibly important skill. So what we recommend is training that awareness through differential practice. Can you have it too high on purpose, too low on purpose, so your brain gets information about how they're different? And so if you can start to develop some memory and some experiences of, oh, when the low point's too high, it could sound or feel like this or that, or however many times you do it, right? If the low point's too low, it could sound or feel something like this, so that if it happens on the golf course, you're easily able to detect which, let's talk about height, right? What dimension that low point was out of place, right? Because I can't tell you how many times on the lesson tee, the ball will hit off the heel, and I'll ask them what part of the club did it hit, and they'll say it hit the toe. And through doing differential practice, if you're hitting the heel on purpose and the toe on purpose, now your brain's getting information about how they're different, so you're more likely to detect where it's hitting on the face. And then not only are you more able to detect where it's hitting on the face, but you're also giving yourself a library of feels that you can call upon when you notice a pattern to start to move you towards the center of your club face. So 3-dimensional low point awareness, adaptability, and predictability is going to be the biggest priority for shots to green for level 1 golfers.
Something struck me the other day when I was setting up for my ladies clinic, which I love every week. I teach a couple clinics for beginner ladies, and I always do the full swing. Typically, I do the full swing part. The great Summer Lee handles the short game, and it just struck me a little bit. I was thinking about the ladies. I was thinking about some of this stuff, and I thought, we're going to work on low point today. I'm gonna show them how to just scratch a line with a tee in the grass. So you can do this for training. Take a tee, scratch a line back and forth in the range grass, okay? So that you could put a ball on it, or don't even need a ball on it. Put your club right on the line, and this would be perpendicular to your target line, by the way. Okay, so it's not horizontal to you; it's perpendicular. Put your club down on there, and then practice taking some swings and trying to see if I'm taking a divot, where it is relative to that line, and see if you can get some feedback on that. So I had the ladies doing it, and it actually went really well, like really well. Okay, I just had them hitting the line first, then we started hitting the ball, and I'm talking about breakthrough well. And I was like, this is really interesting. So I thought about it, ruminated on it, came back the next week, and it all kind of hit me. We at the Country Club of Virginia host a tour event, right? And so every year, Hall of Fame golfers, the Champions Tour playoff event, I watch them. It's been 8 years. I run the practice facility. I've probably spent now literally 400 or 500 hours on the range with these players, okay? So when you watch them practice, and I always say to the ladies, when you watch the really, really good players practice, they practice at a much slower sort of rate than we would as amateur golfers. Amateur golfers swing and hit and swing and hit and swing and hit. And it struck me, as you watch it as a tour player swings and hits, and he watches the ball or she watches the ball land. They think about it. They may make some kind of funny mannerisms of stuff they're trying to feel or work on, right? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm talking about. You've all seen it, right? And then they go back in and hit. And I said to the golfers, and I thought this, and it was just kind of a big moment, okay? I thought, when we're amateur golfers on the range and we're trying to improve, we have really no feedback on this stuff a lot of times, right? Like, this might be the paramount skill in golf, is being able to control the low point in 3 dimensions, like you were saying, and yet we have not a lot of feedback on that. So what do? Our practice is very binary. We swing and hit, and we go, oh, that was great, or oh, that was bad. Oh, that was great.
Correct.
Oh, that was bad. And we just do this over and over again. What's the adjustment? Well, there is no adjustment, really, because the feedback I'm giving myself is just the shot. Just the shot.
You're not giving yourself information to adjust relative
There's
to.
no information. And so what do? I swing again, and I hope it's good, and then I get happy. So I hit 7 irons in a row, and they feel happy. They're making me happy. I get the big, endorphin rush from my brain. All the happy chemicals release, okay? And I'm good, and my self-worth goes up, and I'm good. I can control the ball. Golf doesn't work like that. As we know, I got to go out in an environment, hit one ball at a time. And so I was telling the ladies, I'm like, listen, I've always taught to them, you need feedback in your practice somehow to be able to judge what you're doing. And I said, in the full swing, it can't simply be, was it a good shot or was it not? Because guess what? Your intention hadn't changed. You made no adjustment. Bad, good, happy, sad, happy, sad.
We're just rolling the dice.
We're just rolling the dice. And that's why we don't push forward, okay? So in this, and now we're taking a long time, I promise every skill on this, because we're going to go through like 12. We're not going to take this long. This one's probably the paramount thing that we build everything else off of in golf. And if you're a level 3 player trying to play the tour, in some way, shape, or form, you're still working on this, okay? In your level. So point being, when you get out there, you can't just swing and swing and swing and swing without feedback. It doesn't help you. And so you just end up with the same. This is why you spin your wheels, right? So if all you do the next time you go out is scratch a line out there and practice hitting the grass in a place relative to that line, like Robbie said, hit the line forward, hit behind the line, like miss the line, put a ball down, hit the ball with the line, hit behind it, like on purpose, like try and do all these things and build a feedback loop for yourself. And then notice what the ball flight does. Then see if you can do it on command. This is the foundation of getting better at golf, and almost no golfers work on it. Almost none. And I think that it really hit me when I just thought, man, I watch these guys. I watch Bernhard Langer practice. You want to talk about a thoughtful practice session? Watch Bernhard. I mean, it's unbelievable, okay? He hits a ball. He watches it land. He stands there posing on the range for 3 or 4 seconds, like absorbing everything that just happened. He looks down. He looks at his club. He goes through a routine. He hits it again. So there's some feedback he's given himself. It's just so thoughtful all the time. It's graceful. It's thoughtful. And it's really quite lovely, to be honest. So you, the golfer, all of you, can get better just by listening, just by trying just this little thing, okay? So we will not take 22 minutes on the rest of these bullet points, I promise you. We'll move a little quicker through them here. But that is, I think that's what we wanted to cover with the low point control level 1, limiting disruptors. We've got to be able to hit the ball solid more often, and we've got to figure out how to train it. Anything else you want to add to that?
Can of Dr. Scholl's Odor X foot spray.
Perfect.
Is the trick, right? Just spray it. See if you can get one on the heel, one on the toe, one low on the face, one higher on the face, and then something in between.
So good. All right, so then we're going to go to short game. One short game skill. Like, what's the picture here? What we've kind of said for level 1 golfers is if you're off the green in that short area somewhere inside of 40 yards to the middle of the green, your goal is to get it on the green in any way, shape, or form. One shot.
Yep.
To get to level 2, that's not going to be the goal anymore. I actually have to develop a little bit more ability to control the ball. And that's what this skill is. The skill is controlling ball. So as we're talking about building skills through the levels, controlling the ball is the key. So now in level 2, I've got to start hitting it a little bit closer to proximity at times, don't I? What's the terminology we use here, GameForge terminology?
Yeah, so on the green in one shot will take you through most of level 1. Then to get back end of level 1 into level 2, you start to need to get a certain number of what we call P12s, which is just getting the ball to stop within 12 feet from the hole. And then a percentage of those need to be actually inside 6, but it's a lower percentage. So I think what's really interesting, I was looking at this earlier, is that basically every golfer gets the same number of shots inside of 6 feet for a round. It's always around 3.
Really?
Yeah.
We're talking about
Every golfer gets about 3 shots inside, or needs to get about 3 shots inside of 6 feet around.
So any approach shot inside 6 feet. So it could be
short game.
From the short game. Okay. Interesting.
It's funny, right? So like level 1 golfers, they have 15 opportunities. They got to get 3 inside 6.
That makes sense. Percentage.
PGA Tour player has 5 opportunities. They need to get 3 inside 6.
Percentage. Okay. I'm literally like,
Yeah.
that's such an interesting tidbit.
It's a really cool, yeah.
So that's how data works, right? Like this is a visual.
Everybody needs to get 3 inside 6. But again, that's a little bit of kind of putting the cart before the horse. To get mostly through level 2, approaching level 3, P12 is going to be your number.
So P12, and if I'm going to be getting it on the green, this is kind of what we're talking about.
So that's the performance,
Yep.
right? So outcome in level 2, right? We're going from fun to kind of being more intense about how we're doing it, right? Because that, it doesn't take a whole lot of stress or effort to really get that steep side of that learning curve into level 1. Like you can just pretty much put in effort and you're going to get better through level 1. But then once you get into level 2, just effort isn't enough, right? You need to put in focused effort to start to get through level 2, which is more stressful, right? So we say like level 1's kind of more fun motivation, level 2's more intense, level 3's kind of more guidance, right? So these are more intense golfers. And then their performance goal for short game, like we said, is going to be P12. And then their process goals are going to be starting to match kind of trajectory and landing area relative to the shot that they're trying to hit.
So now, like a beginner golfer, we're basically saying putt everything you can putt, play it along the ground.
If you can putt it, putt it. If you can't putt it, chip it. If you can't chip it, pitch it.
Now
right?
now we've got to develop that ability to control a height of the shot a little bit is all we're saying. So
right. Like a higher percentage of, you can still probably putt quite a few to get them inside 12, but now it's a lower percentage of situations where you can putt it inside 12 feet relative to just being able to putt it on the green.
Yeah. Because again, as you're trying to visualize, if I'm rolling a ball, if it's coming down a slope, or if I don't have enough green to slow it down, I've got to now start to slow it down with either spin of the ball or trajectory. And then this player, we're talking a little bit more about trajectory. Trying to get the ball up and landing softer.
Yeah.
Spin will come into play. We'll talk about that shortly. So you got to develop a pitch shot, essentially. You were putting and chipping before. Now you can develop a pitch. We're probably not going to adequately today communicate that on the podcast, but you should all know what a pitch shot is. You're going to start using a sand wedge, for the shot, or a lob wedge most of the time. Hitting the ball a little higher in the air, landing a little softer.
Yeah, pitch shot's going to, like the carry roll ratio is going to be about 1-to-1. Or, could actually spend more time in the air than on the ground.
Yeah, and so that's a skill you're going to have to develop. If you don't have it, I will say low point control comes in a lot there too. So it's a huge deal.
Yeah.
We're not going to get deep into that tonight. That'll be something maybe we'll follow up with. This could be a good Substack topic, but today we're just going to kind of leave it as you got to learn to pitch the ball. Okay, if you don't, go to a clinic, take a lesson, come to a short game, something. Learn to pitch it. Don't go to YouTube. Bad place to learn how to pitch it. So let's go to putting. Putting now. We just had a long conversation about level 1 with this putting thing. So I think the picture to me here is that in putting, we're trying to develop a feel of being a better putter. What does that mean? What does that mean for me? And I think the beginner golfer is like, Eric, if I can figure out which direction it's generally going and get it in 2 or 3 putts most of the time, I'm really happy. Now I'm starting to keep score. I've always said that you don't really care about putting until you start keeping score and wanting the score to go down. Then you start worrying about putting. And we know, okay, I'm going to limit 3 putts. Okay, everybody, we know that. We get it. What's the data say? What is a little bit deeper? What's a nugget there, Rob, on putting as you're developing from someone who maybe shoots in the hundreds or 90s to someone that shoots in the 80s? Like, what is the difference, or even in the high 70s?
Yeah, so really for level 1 golfer, like we've said before, number one priority is proximity, right? If you can get the ball to stop as close to the hole as possible, you're going to be giving yourself a much greater likelihood of 2-putting and getting out of there. And that does require quite a bit of work inside 6 feet to be able to clean those up. Now, to get through level 2, you're really just kind of doing them both better, right? So you're improving your proximity on your lag putts, and you're improving your your conversion inside 6 feet.
If you're a beginner golfer to someone shooting in the hundreds, if you make a putt from outside of 6 feet, or probably outside of 3 or 4 feet, it's I don't want to say it's luck, but it's probably it's less skill. It's more like, okay, I got the stars to line up and I hit it and I made it in there. If you're gonna be shooting in the 90s, 80s, 70s, you've got to start making some 1-putts inside from 4 to 6 feet. Like, you have to be able to and if you're gonna make some intentionally with good skill, we talked about this on the putting stuff. Like, I've got to be able to read it better. I've got to start it online. I've got to match up some speed. And so I got to give it a good chance a lot more often. Like, I've got to be hitting putts that look like they're going to go in, right? Mm-hmm. And some of them will go in and a lot of them won't. But I've got to start looking. And if you play with someone who's just a scratch golfer, again, there's ranges of scratch golfer skill. They make a lot of their putts inside of 6 feet. I mean, you're going to see a lot of good putting inside of 6 feet. If it doesn't go in, it looks like it's going to go in, right? A beginner golfer, when they go in, you think, oh, I'm glad it hit the hole. Or, it's kind of like that. You're developing your skills. We're not making fun. You're developing your skills. And you know that. You have the awareness of that as that player. I'm not sure how that's ever going to go in. So you've got to develop that ability to strike it better, read it a little better, control the speed, right? Mark Sweeney himself said it's about speed most of the time, controlling that speed, right? The green reading guru says it's about speed. And I think that's true, So we're working to control our putts better. So, and again, the lag putt is true. Like, I got to limit some 3-putting, but it's about controlling and really making those 6-foot and in putts look like they're tidy putts. Like, I did a good job. I read it pretty well, rolled it pretty well. They went in, they didn't. So that's level 1 to level 2. Okay, you're gonna work on your low point control and contact to limit disruptors. You're gonna start hitting. You're gonna start using some higher trajectories in the short game to get yourself closer to the hole quicker. Inside of 12 feet is a goal there more often, and then you're gonna start making some putts. Like, really become a proficient putter inside of 6 feet. I think that was good for level 1. Okay, level 1 to level 2. Now, level 2 to level 3. Again, just to kind of refresh. This is the biggest probably area of our listenership, I would think, of being level 2. It's probably the biggest part of golfers in the country, would you think, level 2? So you're someone that's shooting 90 to 76. Mm-hmm. So good golfers. Like, these are people that can play golf, right? Like, they're playing some good golf, right? So in the full swing, I think, we went through this on some other episodes. We're kind of reiterating and then breaking this down a little bit more, pulling some threads here. So if I'm going to improve my scoring and get from a level 2 to level 3 player in my ball striking, I'm going to have to do one major thing, which we think is likely the most important stat in golf, right? And I got to do a little better. So what is that stat and what do I need to do with it there, Rob?
We got to start hitting more greens in regulation.
Meaning I'm putting for birdie.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that means.
Yep.
Okay, 1 in a par 3, 2 in a par 4, 3 shots in a par 5.
Yes.
So I got to do that more often. How am I gonna do that more often, Rob?
Let's hit it further off the tee.
That's a good part. Okay, so
yeah, let's hit it further off the tee. And again, there's still a strike dispersion component to it. So the strike dispersion is still coming down, but to get through level 2, we need to start hitting it further so we can hit more of our par 4 greens and rag. And then starting to manage face relative to path is going to be the big added one, I think.
Yeah. So hitting it better, hitting it further, hitting it more predictably, right?
Yep.
Better control, better strike.
Yeah,
farther.
like you start to more accurately predict, this club goes about this far. I'm into the wind, I'm a little uphill, right? You start to be able to make some of these adjustments and improve the likelihood that you get the ball in the green. Whereas level 1 to level 2, again, we're hitting more greens, but the shots to green is coming down a lot more because we're reducing those disruptors.
So there becomes a moment too as an instructor where if people come to you with a goal, an outcome goal, like I want to be this handicap, or I want to win the club championship, or I want to whatever, where you have to be pretty honest about, can you hit the ball far enough right now to do that? Mm-hmm. Right? There is sort of, and we talked about that on an episode. I think we kind of gave some base up. At least I remember doing that. Mm-hmm. We gave some baseline, maybe data on that. But at some point, you're not going to hit more greens in regulation if you don't hit it further. Because if you hit it further, you hit it higher. And you're hitting shorter clubs into greens that land steeper. You can control them easier, right? The face path is easier to control because I have more loft. So I spin the ball sideways less. And it's traveling less long in the air. So it's, those angles of miss become tighter. And yes. I can land it steeper. So descent angle becomes a really big thing. So I can hit it on the green. So speed control becomes maybe that thing here where I gotta hit it a little further off the tee and I gotta control a little bit better.
Correct. Yeah, and obviously as face and path get more divergent, ball speed goes down. As I start to hit it off the center of the face, ball speed goes down. Right. So you can think about adding speed, hitting it closer to the middle of the face, getting the face and path closer together. Those are all going to improve ball speed, right? So as we're adding ball speed, now our ability to push par 5s and 2, hit shorter clubs into par 3s and par 4s gets much, much easier to manage.
I'll tell you a phenomenal story that happened to me a couple weeks ago. Young man comes in for a lesson. I recognize the name on my lesson book, but I couldn't quite picture the face. I'm like, I know I've met this person, I've had a lesson, but I can't quite picture who it is. And so he came in and he said, "You remember we did a lesson last year?" I'm like, "Yeah, I do remember." Because once I saw him, I remembered. I didn't remember what we worked on. But he said, "Yeah, I was a 12 and now I'm a 5." And I was like, "Oh." And he goes, "It was just the one thing you told me." I'm like, "Really?" And here's the thing. It was a grip issue, okay? A grip issue is actually a face issue. And a face issue could actually fix a path issue. And then all of a sudden I'm hitting it further. And I'm hitting it straighter. And so that person that guy, that young man, without practicing a ton, he's got babies at home. He's like, he was elated, happy. I said, "Can you do me a favor next time?" I said, "How long has it been since this lesson?" He goes, "It's been a year." I said, "Okay, next time, tell me this happened because I love to hear this stuff. I want to hear about it." He goes, "Yeah, you strengthened my grip. I realized why I was slicing it. I'm hitting it way further. It just accumulated from a 12 to a 5 like that." So he went from, level 2
there you go.
to level 1 player.
Added a ton of ball speed.
Added a ton of ball. And he was actually smashing it, right? The other thing is if I'm playing with a left path and an open face and playing that pull cutty shot, I usually swing easy to try to control it, right? I'm not trying to get too quick, gosh. Right? Well, he was just ripping it. And it was just like, because he knew it was going to go pretty straight. And I said, That is one of the coolest things I've ever seen, right? This is awesome. My belief in golf instruction, too. It took 30 minutes. He jumped from level 2 to level 3 in 30 minutes. So that was really cool. So anyway, that's what you've got to, that's the picture of what you've got to do to get from level 2 to level 3. Okay, so in the short area, we've got to get a little bit. If I'm going to get to level 3 player from level 2, level 2, I know now I can change trajectories pretty well. I can hit a pitch shot. I can putt from off the green. I can hit low running chips. I'm getting it inside of 12 feet more often. So what is it that gets me to level 3 player? Gets me closer to that scratch player? What do they do in the short area that's just a little bit better than that level 2 player?
Yeah, so performance goal would be P6 is going to be their big metric, while still, I'd say, getting 80% of their shots inside 12 feet. That's a rough number off the top of my head. It's around 80% probably getting inside 12 feet. And then probably 50% inside, probably 60% inside 6 feet, I would say.
That's a big
somewhere
change.
Around there, 50. That's 50, 60, yeah.
That's a huge change.
Yeah.
Huge change. Yep. I mean, you can picture that. Like, you can picture those, here's my friend that putts from off the green versus someone who's hitting it inside of 6 feet 60% of the time from off that. That's like phenomenal as you're working down towards scratch player, right? What do they do better?
Yeah, like those numbers I gave you were like 72 to 76 golfers. So that's an elite golfer.
That's really good. Really
advanced,
good golfer.
Yeah, like kind of end of level 2. They start getting, obviously they have fewer opportunities, but yeah, same P6. Yeah, so yeah, they just kind of maintain the same P6 number, the same P12 number, just with like 2 fewer opportunities. So the short game's getting better as a percentage of their opportunities for sure. But the big number they need to keep track of is the 6 feet, because really, and if you look at all golfers for the most part, your ability to get inside 6 is basically your scrambling rate.
Yeah.
Right. So your scrambling rate and your P6s are like so tight. So level 2 to level 3 golfers, we're trying to get up and down. Mm-hmm. So we need to get it inside 6 feet.
Right.
Is really the number there.
On the tour, 85% of up and downs are from inside of 6 feet, where they've chipped it inside of 6 feet. So these players are good putters and not as good as PGA Tour putting, right? So
yeah.
What is it about their short game? What is the one thing they do skill-wise that looks a little different from level 2 to level 3? Then what are they doing to be able to get it
so now we're talking about process stuff, right? So this is where not only is their ability to create their intended speed, their intended loft, their intended strike, getting better. All 3 of those are getting better. But the big one is their ability to predict the lie and how it's going to affect the golf ball, the slope that it's landing on, how it's going to affect the golf ball, and then the slope that it's rolling on and how that's going to affect the golf ball. So all 3 of those elements, right, the lie, the slope, right, and then kind of the slope it's going to be rolling across, they're able to chunk all of that information into a shot and a feel that they're going to produce to kind of match up and get the ball to stop inside 6 feet, right? So they're doing different things relative to different lies. They're spinning it more, spinning it less, hitting a little higher, hitting a little lower relative to different slopes that the ball is landing on. They're reading the green, right? So they're figuring out, okay, when this ball lands, is it going to deflect left or right off of that slope? When it starts rolling, is it going to break right or left? And they're going to match their launch direction with their predicted, with what they predict, right? So all of the skills get better, right? The speed, the strike, the loft, as well as they get way better at predicting what they need to do relative to those environmental factors.
Just really good. Like, they got skills, like lots of skills.
Yeah.
And to me, and we talked about this before, if you can use spin now, we were using trajectory in level 2. Now we're going to start using spin, backspin of the ball, to slow the ball down, which a lot of times allows us to play the ball over some slopes rather than rolling across them. I can fly over and roll it a little less once it lands, so that I'm not having to read as much, right, or judge as much of that slope. And I saw this big discussion about, Tiger lands every chip shot 6 feet on the green and lets it roll, and I just never saw that.
I don't think he actually does that.
I mean, he said it. Did you see the video I was talking about?
Yeah.
I'm just like watching. I'm thinking, Tiger didn't do that.
Yeah.
Tiger hit those 20 yards away. Tiger was landing at 4 feet from the hole and just stopped it. So I don't know.
No.
It's funny when you listen to tour players sometimes say what they think they do, but
I know.
when you study the data, they may not always do that. So if you could get the ball spinning and checking, you could fly it over a bunch of stuff that you don't have to judge anymore, right? Like, and then so it's really pretty amazing. You have to be really good with your contact, really good with your practice, so that you can develop the feel of how far you want to fly it and how much you want to spin it. But you get really skill laden at that point. Like it's just very, very heavy skill. Like you see them being able to hit shots that a level 2 or level 1 player just can't hit.
What I tend to see them do is they'll usually start with the most predictable landing area and then kind of work in from there, right? So as a general rule, and this comes from James Rudyard, but we like to land the ball on the green. Again, this is for level 2 into level 3 and level 3 golfers, right? So if we can land it on the green, we'd like to land it on the green. That's more predictable than landing it off the green. So green, number 1, right? Assuming we're landing it on the green, if we can get a flat slope, that's the most predictable. If we can't get flat, we like to have a slight upslope. If we can't land it on the green where it's flat or an upslope, now your options are obviously land it on a downslope or land it off the green. Mm-hmm. So between those two, it's really a judgment call. Especially if the pin's back, right? Landing it on a downslope's not a bad option a lot of times. If the pin's front, landing it off the green is doable depending on, like if you're playing in sticky zoysia, it's not always doable. But if you're playing on nice bent or some like pretty fine Bermuda, a lot of times you can play something in there low and land it short of the green if the pin's front, or even middle sometimes. But that's kind of like a nice little hierarchy of kind of landing areas for level 2, like late level 2 and then level 3 out to tour golfers is on the green, flat slope, upslope, and then if not upslope, kind of pick your poison between downslope and fairway.
That's a great visual. I think it's a good people. You should listen. Play that back and listen to what he just said again. It's a great process for decision making on that shot.
So then, relative to that slope that they choose, a lot of times they will back into, all right, what is this lie dictating? And then they will create a shot that will land where they want and then create the desired roll ratio, right? So let's say they're on a downslope. They know that they've built in a longer roll ratio. If they're on an upslope, shorter roll ratio. Rough, especially if it's sitting level in the rough or down in the rough, more roll ratio. Sitting up, right? So they're factoring in all these environmental pieces with a process of where they want to land the golf ball. They're kind of reverse engineering that and kind of creating their shot from there. And then, right, level 1 golfers, let's just get on the green. Just put it on the green. So it really is this process of, what is your intention for where the ball needs to stop on the green, P12, P6, and then to satisfy that to the percentage that you need for your skill level, there are these process goals that we need to start putting into place to allow those to happen.
I think it's a great visual. We're seeing how it plays out, level to level to level to level. Putting. If I'm going from level 2 to level 3 player, what do I need to do? What do I need to do better in what is the big thing that jumps out for you in putting?
Yeah. So speed dispersion still gets tighter. They start placing their dispersion more strategically, meaning like they're not leaving it short as often inside of 20 feet, 20 to 30 feet, right? They're putting more of their dispersion past the hole, and because their dispersion is tighter, they're able to keep the distance the ball stops, their proximity still within a very, very makeable range. So they get that. It's kind of like a double bonus, right? They get the shorter dispersion that then allows them to place it beyond the hole, right? So not only are they three putting less, but then they're making more because they're getting more putts in that sort of like optimal entry speed range. So those are the two big things. Biggest thing level 3 golfers are doing, though, is, again, just like the short game, their read prediction gets insanely better.
Yeah.
And that's why they're making so many more putts.
They need aim point, is essentially what you're saying. They gotta be able to read the greens and predict it better. It's neat to see players go through. Have you ever had a golfer long enough to see them go from like beginner to kind of like elite status golfer?
I had a junior. I had a couple. I had 3 or 4 juniors actually go from like not being able to hit it to. I had 2 juniors who signed and play D1 this past year.
So
cool. From what it worked out. Yeah, it was so great.
And just taking them through this process, right, and seeing their performance improve.
At the time, I didn't know what I was really doing.
Yeah.
But I would just watch them play. I'm like, okay, we need to hit it better. We need to hit it better. We need to hit it better.
Yeah.
We need to hit it better. And then at some point, okay, we need to do some short game and some putting.
It's it's pretty phenomenal. And if a kid's gonna go play D1, they hit it phenomenally well. Like they all hit phenomenally well.
They have to.
I've seen some mediocre short games in D1 players.
Oh my gosh,
very mediocre.
I've seen some tragic short games in.
But it's interesting, right? Because
level 3, because they hit it so good.
It doesn't matter that much. Like they're missing.
They don't give themselves that many opportunities.
Correct, and if they flop one on the green, kind of make one out of 3.
And a lot of times they're like, I've seen some level 3 golfers, elite like golfers playing at some of the highest levels. Say, well, I'm hitting 13 to 14 greens. So the 4 greens that I miss, I figure I can putt 2 of them inside of 6 feet. And so really on the other 2 that I need, just like, can I, if I'm in the rough, I'm pretty good. Like I just like chop it out on the green. So like it's really only one, like they come and see me and they're like, okay, I need to help on this one shot around. Right. So it's kind of like a cool way to think about it. Like they have so few opportunities. They're probably going to be in the fairway for a couple of them. And they're thinking like, okay, I can just putt this thing inside of 12 or 6 feet. So it's really just like 1 or 2 shots around where they really need it. It's kind of, it blows your mind and it just gives you that added context of how important tee shots and approach shots are to playing your best golf. It's by far and away the most important.
It's very interesting. So that kind of a good segue between that elite status golfer and tour player. I mean, I don't want to spend tons of time on that. I don't think we have tons of tour players tuning in, listening, and thinking about how they need to get to tour to improve better in their tour improvement. But essentially, there's a couple.
You do all the same things, just better.
Yeah, and so one of the ones, and Mark Sweeney mentioned this on the pod, that the biggest thing his tour players statistically in the ball striking they look for was something called an in position, right? Like they're sort of benchmarking an in position, meaning
20 feet in.
I've hit it 20 feet and in for birdie. Okay, not just on the green, but 20 feet and in. And he gave a number like they need 6.5 or 7.5. I don't remember off the top of my head.
That sounds about right.
It was one of those numbers per round. If you think about it, on the so let me go back for a second. We were talking about, is an 85 shooter golfer closer to scratch golfer versus scratch to tour player? And when you factor in the pressure and the course setups that these guys play,
oh my gosh,
their livelihood, the environment, the TV, the whole thing. I think adjusted. I saw some stat the other day that like, I don't know if it was Scotty or if it was Tiger. I don't remember. Adjusted for course difficulty, their handicap would be like plus 12.
Yeah, I saw that.
Plus 12. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
Meaning their score potential on a normal setup from the blue tees, the people you play golf with, their score potential each day is minus 12. I mean, that's like 60. It's just, right? So that's
why handicap is not always.
But it's a measurement of their potential, which makes sense. Like I would say, if you took them out to Birdwood and played them from 6,500 yards,
plenty of these guys shooting in 60, 59s. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for many. I mean, so they're so outrageously good, It's hard to even fathom, right?
Yeah.
And so in position, like I've got it on these tour setups, which for the ladies is long. I don't know what the ladies typically play, but they're pretty long courses. And the men are playing, 74, 76, 7,800 sometimes, just yards. And firm greens, and, they don't have a lot of rough all the time. We'll let that go. That's a discussion for another day. But they got to hit it.
Oh, boy, are we getting into a rollback discussion here?
We're going to leave that drop for another day. They got to hit it 7 times, basically, inside of 20 feet for birdie.
Yeah, 7 or 8,
Pretty amazing. Just to be able to compete out there. It's a pretty amazing thought that you could do that. Like, that's how good they are. And so if you, as the listener here, if you're tracking greens in regulation, track how many times you hit it inside 20 feet too. It's pretty interesting. Those are your realistic birdie chances. Yeah. That's why we call them in position.
80% of all birdies happen inside 20 feet.
So it's a statistical probability that you could make one. Yeah. Just phenomenal that they can do it. The ball striking is just outrageous, long, high, straight, controlled. No disruptors, basically. What was it? They average a half a disruptor in penalty per round on tour, something like that. Is that the number I saw? 0.5?
Yeah, I would need to look at that, but
it's something like that. 0.75.
Probably adding in penalty shots too.
Yeah, when you add in penalties and disruptors, it's like 0.75 or so. It's like so ridiculous. Yeah. Just think about that, people. It's crazy under all that pressure. And then in their short game, in the short area, it's everything we just talked about in level 3, only better. It's just better. Done better. It's just done better. It's done closer. It's done more often with fewer chances, out of more diverse lies. Like, that's really what I picture out of the tour short game is like, yeah, I could chip it inside of 6 feet, but now I'm, standing with 1 foot in the bunker, and I'm got no green to work with, and I can hit this ridiculous shot. Like Tiger, who was Tiger playing with in the first round of the Masters this year? When they both came up short on 11. Do you remember that? Were you watching? They both came up short on 11. It was a front hole location. So they're on a downslope, both of them. Two different great golf. I can't remember who the other one was.
Was it Rahm? No. It was Jason Day.
Jason Day. You got it. So it was interesting because there's 2 different short game techniques. Tiger and Jason Day do it slightly differently. They're both about 10-yard shots off a downslope to a front hole location on 11, which is insane. And they both hit it to like a foot, like with these ridiculous, like unbelievable wide open face off a tight lie, grain growing into them with water on the other side, off a downslope, like unbelievable. And they made it look so easy under the heart. This is the Masters. Like, this wasn't the practice round, right? This isn't, out with your friends on golf league night. Like, this is unbelievable. And so it's the ability to do that from even more diverse places, more adaptability, more skill, like just more.
And then the one thing I will say to that is that I think the tour pros are really good at assessing the situation and then knowing, okay, I don't need to get every short game shot inside 6 feet. Does this one really need to be one of them? Right? So like your back-end college player they've gotten to that point because they're thinking, okay, I got to get everything inside 6 feet. And so they're more likely to get a disruptor because they might choose a shot or take on a shot that they don't need to take on, right? Whereas the tour pro, I think, is really good at avoiding that potential disruptor by saying, all right, this is a situation to where I'm way out of position, right? I don't have to get this inside 6 feet. I can get this inside 12, or I could even just get this thing on the green. And they take their medicine and they get out. And on the surface, it looks like, they didn't hit a great shot, or they conceded. But, if you gave them 100 opportunities from that situation and you gave, like, let's say a high-end college player 100 situations, right? The college player might get more inside 6 in their strategy, but their scoring average might be higher over long term because they're going to have too many disruptors. So I think that's another point that I wanted to make is like tour pros are just better strategists too. Like they know when, okay, this is my P6 opportunity versus, okay, I need to get this thing on the green.
Yeah, there's a competitive instinct to that, I think.
Yeah.
A friend of mine plays, she's a LPGA tour player, and she'll talk about like shots she goes to on the course when she feels certain things. It's just because I know in the moment I can pull this off and then not get myself in trouble, right? I can avoid disruptors, just like you were saying.
Totally.
So,
and I was talking to a LPGA Tour caddy last week, Chris George and I. Chris set it up, and really thankful that he did. And it was just fascinating listening to him and how they talk about how they're going to plan out and kind of like, quote unquote, like attack the golf course. They're like, okay, we know that we need to get 8 balls inside 20 feet. Let's figure out where our opportunities are to do that. Let's figure out which holes we can do that. Which holes do we need to say, okay, it's great if we get it, but we don't necessarily need to get this one inside 20 feet, right? We can just, make sure that we're not making a double, right? Or, get out with a bogey or get out with a par on this hole, right? So, I mean, a lot of these tour pros, they're looking at the layout of the golf course and they've got these numbers in the back of their head. They know kind of what they need to do to put, 4 rounds in the 60s and have a chance of shooting 20 under for 4 rounds, right? And they're starting with the performance and they're working kind of back from that. So, and I think what they're also really good at is not letting that get in the way of their process and what is relevant when they're hitting a shot. So they take in all this information. They're like, okay, these are my opportunities. This is how I'm going to play the golf course. But then when it's time to actually hit the shot, they filter out all the stuff that isn't relevant, and they're very, very present and engaged in what are they actually trying to do, what is meaningful, what is relevant to hitting this particular shot. And so they do a great job of doing both, because a lot of golfers, they might have the right expectations, but then they're letting like the performance goal affect their process stuff, right? Whereas we can have this performance goal, but we don't want it to get in the way of what we're doing process-wise. Because really the outcome, like anything that happens performance-wise, is again just a result, right? It's we're not really putting our attention on it when we're actually hitting the shot. It just informs a little bit of the decision-making beforehand. So I wanted to make that point too, as far as what the tour players do so well, is they are so good at filtering out, maybe not consciously, but subconsciously, and more not, more kind of from a process standpoint, what is relevant, what is not relevant, and they're really good at placing their attention on what's relevant when it's relevant, which is in that 15 to 20 seconds that they're hitting a shot.
Yeah, that's how they get there. I mean, that's the competitive mindset of those players is phenomenal. They can flip a switch and just be pretty incredible. And then in the putting, again, I think Mark Sweeney mentioned how they're 50% better. Tour players are 50% better from 10 to 20 make percentage than a Division I college golfer. Like, that is just
insane.
50%. Like I said, they're not humans, right? So you talk about read tolerance and start line tolerance is probably the key to making putts more. Like, I would think a D1 college golfer probably controls the speed pretty well. I mean, they're not 3-putting, but getting the read and the start line tight to where they can actually make the ball go in the hole. That's really the thing they're working on, I think, probably the most.
And I think the other thing that tour pros do is, like, even though the dispersion on paper isn't that much tighter than a tour pro, they place their dispersion across all sorts of the different putts that they see in a much more consistent location than college players. So, like, if you get a tour pro on an uphill slope versus a downhill slope, right, they're strategically getting their dispersion that would give them the optimal entry speed more often than the college pro is. Even though if you look at the total size of the shot pattern or the putt dispersion, it might not be that much different. The tour pro is just placing that dispersion strategically more oftentimes in a more optimal place than the college players. So their speed is much better too.
Speed and just again, kind of goes back to the strategy mindset. Like, this is what I need to accomplish to try to get myself to make these birdies or make this save or whatever it is. Because they are thinking more birdie. You know, this is where birdies are a big, big deal, is with this really elite
they have to.
tour. They got to make birdie.
Because, I mean, especially playing competitive golf on tour, you really need one good week, 1 or 2 good weeks, right? It does you'd have a much better season with a win and a ton of miscuts than if you made every cut but finished 40th or 50th.
When you're talking business standpoint, for sure, they front load.
Oh my gosh, they would so much rather have a win, right?
Yeah.
So to win these tournaments, they absolutely need to have, birdies as being a part of their strategy and how they're going to get to 20 under, get to 15 under, get to 20 under.
Lee Trevino always said 2 things that don't last very long are dogs that chase cars and pros that putt for pars. Just not going to last very long. Got to make those birdies. Trevino, he's the best. So
that's awesome.
I think that brings us to a culmination of this episode. 3 things every level of player can do to get to the next level. Level 1 to level 2, level 2 to level 3, level 3 to tour. I think that's a summary, and it's stuff you can work on in season, right? This is a time of year where you're not. These are appropriate things in season to keep working on, and I thought it would be fun to do a little summary of that. I think people like action steps. That's why I thought it'd be a fun episode. And
it's very on brand for us.
Very on brand. We thank you for listening. Little business at the end. If you like our show, please rate it. Give us that 5-star rating on whatever app you listen to us on. We've got a 5-star rating on both Apple and Spotify, which is really cool. Really like it. If you want to leave a review, we would love that too. It just helps us kind of spread out. We are going to be on YouTube now. That's what I'm hearing.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. So this is in video. No one wants to see
what
it.
happens.
No one wants to see us. Just listen to it. Don't. And I got this blue glare on my glasses from this. Yeah, we'll get this figured out. But it's fun. We're glad you're listening. I love.
And then subscribe to our Substack.
Yeah, and subscribe to the Substack. So if you want to get a little bit deeper, Robbie's written some really cool articles on the Substack, which you can find on there. It's the golfintervention.substack.com. We have a free subscription and a $10 a month there, so there are some things behind the paywall. We're going to be recording our second bonus episode very soon to put up there, so we're trying to put a bonus episode every month on there of the show, which is going to be very actionable. That's our goal with those, is to be a little bit more actionable with things that you can do or practice to get better. The first one was on building a perfect putting practice session so you can really push your skills forward. And so if you want to support us, sign up on there. Sign up for the free one. If you just want to do that, you'll get some stuff there. And then you'll see what gets put up behind the paywall for just $10 a month to support the show. We appreciate it. We're glad you tuned in. If you have any thoughts for us, you can always email us. There's a little link wherever you have your podcast. You'll see there's a little link every time where you can click it. It'll say send them a message or something. It says you just click it and then it actually texts me. So I've gotten a few messages from people, but tell us what you think, or if you've got a question, we'd love to answer it on the show. That's kind of what we want to do, and have some interventions here. Anything else you'd like to add at the end here, Robbie?
No, I think we're all set.
Well, people, I hope you have a great week of golf. I hope you play lots of golf this weekend. We are in full swing at the Country Club of Virginia. It is jamming, as you can probably imagine. We got 3 courses booked all day long. Jamming. So much fun. We got lots of fun stuff coming up. The Summer Golf League started tonight. Guess how many players the Country Club of Virginia has in the Summer Golf League, Robbie?
Oh, my God, freaking 1,000.
We've got 3 flights of 84 players in the Summer Golf League. It's our best event. And guess what? This
So
is
great.
honest to God truth. We do online signups. They filled up in 20 seconds.
30 seconds.
20 seconds.
Oh, I was
All full
10 seconds
and a
too-
waiting list
too long.
in 20 seconds. It's the
How long did
coolest.
the Op 36 fill up?
Op 36 is usually about an hour. We'll fill
An
up
hour?
140 some kids in about an hour or something like that.
So insane.
Yeah. It's a big busy place.
It's a factory.
It's a factory. We love it. We love it.
It's a great factory.
Thank you, people, for tuning in, and we will catch you next time. I think we've got some ideas for shows, but I'm not going to tease it this time. We're going to see where we go from here. So have a great night.
Cheers.